Today we're going to talk about how to repair an Eversolar solar inverter. This one's off a 2 kilowatt PV array. It's got it on the side here, Eversolar TL2000 GB. They also come in a TL1500 and various countries as well, so you have a TL2000 AU for Australia. I've actually pulled this one apart a bit, but I just want to show you how to do that. First of all, of course, you've got to make the system safe, so turn off the AC main switch inverter isolator, which should be next to your fuse board or your consumer unit. Usually worth flicking the switch in the consumer unit as well. Then turn off the AC isolator at the inverter and turn off the DC isolator at the inverter. You then need to pull out the cables at the bottom of the unit. That's the AC, which just literally pulls. It'll be a quite tough pull because it's got this little rubber O-ring for a seal. And then you've got your DC positive and negative, and they again just pull. You might need to squeeze in at the top because they've got these little retainers. I don't know if you can see that. Don't forget your PV panel is always live, so important to isolate in that order. Then we're going to pull the plastic cover off, which is literally decorative purposes only. They have a little slot for your screwdriver. This one's already open, but you put the slot in, twist your screwdriver and they'll pop open, and then it pulls off the top as well. And you can see that's the little clips on the back, and the same at the top. So it's no point in pushing in with the screwdriver, as I did with that one, because you're bending the clip the wrong way. So you literally just want to lever it off carefully. Right, and then we've got 4 Torx screws. So this is a Torx head bit. I just have a whole stack of them, and I don't know what size this is, probably a T25. And then 4 screws, 1, 2, and then 2 at the top, 3, 4. Oh, before you do that, of course, you can just lift the unit off the wall. If I just, how am I going to do this now? So, on the back, you've got keyholes. So if it's mounted properly, it's on bolts on the wall, and this just slots over. So you should just be able to push up half an inch and lift. It's quite heavy. You can see here while I've got it up this massive aluminium heat sink behind, and that's quite important to consider in a minute. So lift it off the wall after you've unplugged everything. Then take your case off, your plastic case, then undo the Torx screws and take the top off. This might require a little bit of pull because it has a seal all the way around it, which might just be a little bit stuck if it's been there a while. So I've already pulled the innards out of this, but the reason for this video is because I've had 2 of these. One failed after 2 years with the error message coming up on the screen. It said Relay Check Fail. It was still under warranty, so I've sent it back and they replaced it. Eversolar, who I think are now Eversolar or owned by SMA. However, this one was installed for 6 years before it failed, and the guarantee runs out after 5 years. They cost about £450 to replace, so I thought I'd have a go at repairing it. It's the same error, Relay Check Fail, and if you look on YouTube or just the forums and things, you'll find that's a very common fault. And the reason for it is that these little things, these are relays, the contacts burn out, and I've cut the top off this one. I don't know if you can see it. See if I can get a better one. Cut the top off so you can see they're the contacts, and this is a solenoid with the little thing, and they just open and shut those contacts, and they're going thousands of times. I suppose over 6 years they've worn. So these are fairly cheap Chinese ones that are in the board. They are, I'll just tell you what they are. They are a Songchuan H94H-2AH1-F-C, and that's probably what you've got in yours as well. It's written on the top, and I've cut the top off these. I'll try and put a still photo of it, but they fit in the board. This is the board that I've already pulled out, and they would fit just here and here. So they go this way round. One, two. Anyway, we're jumping ahead. So what you have to do first, and I'll show you this in reverse order later, is to remove the screen board, which sits on 3 pegs here, and there are 3 screws which you just pull out, and it plugs into this other board which has been sitting vertically in there. So basically you've got a vertical board and a horizontal board. So you take 3 screws out of this one, just ease it gently out of that plug, put it to one side. This one I had to actually cut with a pair of side cutters. There's a little plastic retaining thing there that wouldn't come out easily. It's one of these little things you have to squeeze, and it was too inaccessible. So I just cut it, pulled that out of 2 sockets, put that to one side. That one's not screwed in. So we've got 3 small screws so far which hold the screen board in. Right, once you've got that out, then there are 12 screws in clear places like this, all the way over the board, which hold the board down onto the heatsink, and they go into these captive nuts here. So there's 12 of those, which again put to one side carefully, and they're quite short, these ones. Then you've got, on this side of the board, you'll see these white plastic retainers, and then there's 4 more, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've taken these 2 out. They're plastic retainers which hold the board down to the heatsink, and they have sorry, there's more than that, there's 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and another one, 5. So you should have 5 long screws this size that come out of these ones, and 6 long screws which are actually a slight. So we've got 6 long screws which are a smaller diameter that come out of these ones. When you've taken all the screws out, and obviously you've got to take all the wires off, these are quite hard to pull off, but you've got 3 connectors to the AC side here, you've got your DC connectors here, and then various positive and negative cables here. Take a photograph so you know exactly where they go back. Once they're all off, all your screws are out, you've got one very small connector which just eases off the board from these 2 pins here, And then you might find it doesn't lift out because this it's got this sheet of it's like a thermal film, I suppose. It's to try and increase the conductivity between the places where they need the heat sinks on the back down to this main block of aluminium, and it was pretty well stuck down, so I just needed to ease with my fingers, gradually moving, gradually kind of pulling at the board gently so as not to crack it, and eased it out. It did come eventually. I've read somewhere else that someone's kind of prized it up, but I'd be a bit reluctant to do that with a tool. Just use your fingers, be patient, and it will come. So that's where we are so far. Now I'm not going to replace the relays with Songchuan ones. I've bought these ones from Radio Spares. So these are Finder. Let's see, I've got a bit of paper here. So they are they're a double pole, double throw relay. The high powered ones, 12 volt DC coil. There's the manufacturer's part number and the Radio Spares stock number. So there's the website if you need it. What I'm hoping is that I'm also going to be able to solder in a socket onto the printed circuit board here. So it was quite a job desoldering these, obviously having to take all the board out to get to the back of it to desolder it with a solder sucker, getting these other relays out. So I'd rather not have to do that again if I have to go through this again. So I'm hoping to be able to put a socket into each of these so I can just plug the new relays in. So if they fail again, next time I just plug the old one out and plug a new one in. I can actually do that in situ while it's on the wall, disconnecting it first obviously. That's my plan, so this video will be continued once I get the sockets. So the parts have arrived. So here we've got our original Songchuan relay, the one that came out. You can see they've got just 6 pins on the bottom. Most relays would have 8, but these are normally open relays, so we're going to have to cut 2 pins off the ones we use. This is the Finder relay 50 series 5012-9, 012 5000 ones that have been recommended to me that I think will do the job. So there's the 8 pins. Now what I'm planning to do is to try and use this Finder socket 9515-2. So this is what I've just got. They've come from Comrade Electronics rather than Radio Spares, because I've also bought here the Finder series 4052-9, 12 5000, which are the ones that they say go with these sockets. Now I'm not sure why I can't use a 50 series in this socket, and I've contacted Finder, they've not replied, but to me the pinouts look absolutely identical. I don't know if you can see there. The 40 series pins are probably about 0.5 millimeter longer, but otherwise everything looks the same. And as these are only sockets, so they're literally, you solder these on the board and the relay plugs into the top and is held in with this clip. I can't see any reason why I shouldn't use that 50 series relay in this 40 series socket. Anyway, I've bought some 40 series ones just in case and hope for the best, but the difference is that these are guided, forcibly guided contacts in these 50 series, which I think is better, although I'm not a relay expert. So what we're going to have to do is take these sockets, the 9515-2 sockets, cut off these two pins here, because there's only 6 holes in the printed circuit board, and these two pins aren't used because the relays are set to normally open and these are the closed pins. So I'll cut those off, solder the 6 pins in, obviously 2 of these, and hopefully that means we can just plug that in. Don't need to cut any pins off there because they'll just go in and won't do anything. And then if I have the problem again, all I've got to do is unplug that from the socket, plug a new one in, and hey presto, away we go. Alright, we'll video some more once we've soldered. So here I've soldered in the 2 sockets, just there, and I'll just stop this and turn the board. And this is the other side, so you can see that one's got the relay already in and there's the socket. So this relay now should just plug snugly into that socket. It's quite a tight fit. Actually, I'm going to stop this and do it with 2 hands. So there's the 2 relays in place. For some reason they come with this little retainer clip that's supposed to hold them into the socket, but the clip is too small for the relay, as far as I'm concerned it is anyway. So I'll forget that, but they're a tight fit, they're not going to fall out in a hurry. But it does mean that when it goes wrong next time I can just unplug those and plug in a new one. So time to put it all back together. So just a reminder too that you have to snip off 2 of the contacts on this, the middle 2 basically, this one and that one. I just used a little pair of snips and a very fine file just to make sure it was flat to the plastic so that this sat on the board completely. So we're going to start reassembling. Got the box, got all the bits ready, and it's basically reverse order. And one thing to note is that it's worth just cleaning up these for the heatsink, just to make sure that there's no residue bits and pieces on there. I just used a rag with some white spirit just to clean off any of the adhesive off this bit of film, but nothing major. And hopefully that will just plonk straight back in. Okay, we've got the board back in. Just to point out that all of these terminals where the cables go on are numbered. So this is P11, P12, and the cables have, you can't really see that, but they have the numbers on the cables. So as long as you haven't lost the little wraps around the cable, you should be able to get them on the right, back on the right one. And make sure these screws on the white plastic ones are really screwed down hard, because they're the ones that hold the heat sink down to the aluminium. So here's the long board plugged in there. You just need to plug that in there and there quite firmly, straight down. And then the display board plugs into this one, just there. So again, just make sure, I'm trying to do this, I did it. Just snap that in there, and then we've just got the last 3 remaining screws, which go there. Yeah, and there into the pegs. this one-handed is not a good idea. Okay, anyway, we'll screw those in, and then it's literally just put the casing back on. So it's put the outside one on, four Torx screws and the plastic cover, and then we're done. And then hopefully it will hang back on the wall nicely and all will be well. Okay, so we've got this hanging back on the wall, and we've got to plug the solar side in, the PV. One. Make sure they're in tight. And then this must only go in one way. Right, and this one has a little clip. You can see that it just goes in the front. So only going one way. Clips in. Just make sure that's in tight. Okay. Right, so now we've got to turn on the DC isolator. And then turn on the AC. And then the next bit's downstairs by the fuse box. This isolator here. Okay, so this is the moment of truth. It's counted down from 360 seconds, I think it is, and we're now on 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Checking. Normal. Yeah, generating 676 watts at the moment. Brilliant, so it's working.